After a bit of a lull during some rough weather, the boats are coming in again thick and fast, bringing with them several thousand people every day. The surge of arrivals is putting a massive strain on Greek resources. Just checking and registering all these newcomers before they travel on and providing them with the basics to survive is a huge task. That's what brought the Austrian Chancellor here. He's the first European leader to visit what is one of the main gateways for migrants. Many of them later make their way through Austria. The Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras was there to show him round, despite his preoccupation with his country's crippling financial crisis. The two men were shown round the main facilities for processing the arrivals, some of them showing clear signs of distress. Others weren't shy about voicing their complaints to the Prime Minister. These were Iraqis who'd been taken to account for just Syrians and kept waiting for several days.
Yes. Don't worry, we fix it.
But the two men know that the wider problem isn't that easy to fix. This was primarily a visit of solidarity, Austria with Greece and both with the refugees. And they said it had to go further than that.
We should distribute them in a fair way. So there is also a question of solidarity. It's a question of solidarity to finance all these concepts and programs, to realize them, and on the other hand, to distribute them. And so I think we have to decide solidarity or against each other. And I think there is no alternative to solidarity.
So the politicians have been and gone, and nothing much has changed here on the ground. The refugees are still here, and of course more will be coming. What they did agree on was some measures to speed up the registration, the processing of these migrants. But beyond that, everything the two leaders had to say reflected their belief that this is a massive problem confronting all of Europe, and it has to be addressed on a pan-European basis. Jim, you're...
The EU is beginning a new operation in the southern Mediterranean to intercept boats smuggling migrants. Under Operation Sophia, naval vessels will be able to board, search, seize and divert vessels suspected of being used for human smuggling. Until now, the EU was focused on surveillance and rescue operations. So far this year, more than 130,000 migrants and refugees have crossed to Europe from the North African coast. More than 2,700 have drowned. The migrant crisis is expected to be one of the issues raised when German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande make a rare joint address to the European Parliament in Strasbourg on Wednesday. The only previous such address was in 1989 with then French President François Mitterrand and the German leader Helmut Kohl. The limits of the EU's mission are obvious. Its warships will have to stick to international waters, meaning that they will have to stay 12 nautical miles away from the Libyan coast. It's not immediately clear whether or not 5 warships, together with support helicopters and drones, will make a practical difference to the number of journeys begun by smugglers and migrants. On some days, around 20 migrant ships set sail from the Libyan coast. The EU eventually hopes to move to a third, more aggressive phase of its operation, by operating within Libya's own territorial waters. But this will only be possible with the approval of either the UN Security Council or Libya itself. The huge numbers of migrants reaching Europe have led to a crisis within the EU, with member states at odds on how to deal with the influx. The deadliest voyages are from Libya to Italy, although more migrants are now taking the Turkey-Greece route. The EU launched the first phase of its operation, called EU NAVFAMT, in June, using naval surveillance to detect smugglers' boats and monitor smuggling patterns from Libya towards Italy and Malta. Operation Sophia, the second phase, has been named after a baby born on an EU ship that rescued her mother off the coast of Libya in August. From its headquarters in Rome, the operations commander, Rear Admiral Enrico Credendino, will oversee several EU warships in the Mediterranean, including the British frigate HMS Richmond. His deputy, Rear Admiral Herve Belegian, told the BBC that Phase 2 of the operation meant we are aiming to start to dismantle this business model by trying to apprehend some suspected smugglers. at sea. A senior migration expert has warned, however, that the EU operation in the Mediterranean will fail unless the bloc also fights criminal gangs in Europe. Eugenio Ambrosi, of the International Organization for Migration, said the transnational criminal rings of traffickers are the same as those involved in weapons and drugs. The boat